G'day everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and so forth to everybody, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Centuro. We're back for, I think, episode 14 with Siraj, Zain, and obviously myself, Ben, from the Centuro team to walk you through a bit of the business that's going on around the world, and hopefully in a sort of informal and throwing a bit of opinion and banter in there as well.
Just
So guys,
can I quickly jump in, Ben?
Yeah.
I just want to say that I've been watching so much CNN during the election time. I wanted to start off today by going, this is Siraj Tofi from Cape Town, and this is Coffee with Centuro.
There we go.
I like it.
There's our new intro.
It's been happening. I mean, if they do it from every little city. So there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
I want you to sign off today as well with I've been Siraj Tofi and you've been watching Coffee with Centuro.
Nice.
Tune back in tomorrow for your latest episode. I like it. I like it. Well, because by the time we air this, the election's probably going to be decided. By the time we're recording it, it's not. I think Nevada's still trailing behind on putting its stuff in. So I'm actually going to not touch the American election. We'll save that for next time. And I'm actually not touching any of our fan favorites. I see there was a bit of a win for Uber with Prop 22 going through in California. I'm not going to touch it. Bit of information around Amazon with some of the European flight hub. Not going to touch it. So I've got a few things here that are slightly fresh for us, but I thought we'd start with our new sort of section, and it's a failure in globalization, going global and marketing and expanding around the world, because obviously that's what we do. So a little bit of a tie in there to us. And then so I wanted to touch on H&M. And if anybody out there of our sort of viewers and listeners can pick up on the theme or the approach of how we're doing this, let me know on. But H&M had a bit of failure with going into the South African market, and as I say that, I'm just curious, which what's the quick headline you guys think of, or if I said, do you know about this? Can you give me one touch before I jump into it? What failure am I referring to, Siraj? Do you know?
I know because I happen to live here, and it kind of blew up quite quickly, as things do in Africa when you get things slightly wrong. Can I mention it, or do you want to say?
No. Give me the quick mention of the what was the thing.
The thing is, H&M. We actually spoke about the fact that Starbucks is not even in Cape Town. Remember?
Yeah.
And immediately the day after we spoke about it, I went to my favorite shopping mall, and boom, there's a big coming soon. And we were like, yay, finally. But H&M were also quite late in South Africa, and they had a massive launch in South Africa. I mean, they spent millions and millions of rand, which is our currency, we're talking about, they wrapped entire buildings. They wrapped, like we talk about, I don't know what it costs, but big skyscrapers, they wrapped it with their big images of their models and everything else. And nowhere in their ad campaign did they have a black person in a country where 76% of South Africans are black. It was just like, it's like, excuse me, you did what?
Well, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
Zain, do you know do you know the case? Was that what you were thinking when I said we're going to talk about the H&M failed campaign?
When you just say H&M failed and you're not talking about a region, I straight away thought about the controversial campaign where they had a child wearing a hoodie, I think, and this is
where I was going. Which time that they screwed up massively in South Africa, because there's a couple that they didn't learn from the first lesson. So I was going to take that as to which way we'll go. So. We'll go, I guess, chronologically. So we'll start with their first failure for 2015 with Siraj, and then we'll move on to where they've then failed again at 2018 with the case Zain's referring to. So 2015, they launch and start putting out their campaigns, and a fashion blogger, as is a common theme here. You don't want to get on the bad side of celebrities or influencers. That really gets a bit of a storm going because it makes it very difficult to control, and people very rarely listen to the brand's message when influencers and celebrities start getting involved. Their voices are heard a lot more. But it just started out with a tweet saying most, if not all, your posters have no black models, and then it just said, please work on that to appeal to everyone. Which, you know, a relatively polite way, right? Everything now is cancel culture and let's go out. But this blogger's just pointed out that there's no black models in your campaign. Please take a look at it. I think that's a pretty good way to approach the situation, right? Rather than immediately condemn. The problem was then H&M's response. So one, they've gone into the market with a poor advertising choice, as Suraj said. Understand your market. 76% to just say black population, no black models. H&M's response, it was a 4-part tweet, but the key part of it was H&M's marketing has a major impact and is essential. And it's essential for us to convey a positive message. And then after that, the rest of it just doesn't help. But obviously after that, everyone then blew up. So the response to please put black people in there is H&M has a major marketing has a major impact, and it's essential we convey a positive message. So then it just obviously blew into black models don't convey a positive message, and it just broke down from there.
I mean, there's so many parts of this fail that you actually don't know. You kind of want to cringe with it, as you often go. You kind of go, how did they get to that point? I mean, they should, and I get the fact that, I mean, we deal with businesses that are scaling globally all the time. And the reason why you scale globally is so that you can have efficiencies and economies of scale and all of those good things. But you cannot take an ad campaign out of Europe or out of maybe Eastern Europe or Sweden, for example, and then just go, let me plug it into Africa. It's just not clever.
I'd say that is just a mistake, an oversight. They've just literally what you've just said. They go, let's just take the same campaign. We've already got the images. We've already got the posters. We're not going to shoot new models. We'll just put that there. No thought went into, targeting the local consumer, which is slightly less bad than what some other brands have done. So if you look at, I think it was an accidental, I mean, it's stupid. It's a kind of oversight by whoever runs the marketing. They've got it wrong. But then you get other brands in which we don't need to go into any detail, but in India, I won't say the name because I can't remember, but I know there was a big skincare brand. And they had an advert where it talked about use this because it lightens your skin. It makes you more white. And that's their USP. And that's literally directly racist. Whereas I think H&M's was just a foolish oversight, but still.
We don't tend to learn from it because literally just a few months ago, a South African brand called Clicks. They're very much like Boots in the UK. They look the same branding. I think they could have in the past had similar shareholding in there. And they ran an online campaign for shampoo where they showed a black woman's hair and went like something like bad. And then like a blonde woman was going, good hair day, bad hair day. It's just like, excuse me. And I think that you just have to be sensitive in this day and age. You can't, and it's not that we're being overly sensitive. And I think it is important for brands to think about what you do, because unfortunately within a and I don't know how problematic it is in other parts of the world, but in Africa you get this thing down, get this thing wrong, and people will literally like come in there and break shop windows. I'm not saying it's right, but they will burn your store to the ground, right?
Yeah, I'll show you. We'll cut. That's a good transition to the next one. But I just wanted to touch one more quick part on the 2015 thing. So part of their response was also that that H&M is a global brand working across all continents within the northern and southern hemisphere. Fashion is global, and so is our marketing campaign. Do you think? I guess that's probably where it seems a bit. Is it short-sighted? Might not be the right word, but like limited in the thing that's just saying, we're a global brand. We'll just put the same message out everywhere.
That's a big
do you think that's
thing.
wrong? Do you think how much do you need to tailor to each market? Because in some way you need a consistent brand image, right? No matter where you are this as a brand. But then how much do you, or what point do you think you start tailoring to the Asian market, to the South African? Sorry.
If you look at so we discussed Starbucks last week. They failed. They're a massive company. Had so many stores. They failed in Australia because they didn't tailor to the market. But with that one, you'd think coffee is coffee. There's slightly more. I mean, I wouldn't say it is, but slightly more forgivable. With fashion, we're not asking you to tailor to South Africa. There's the entire continent of Africa. There, people look different. They've got different features. But if you had a couple of black models, you're at least addressing a different type of person. Fashion is global, but not everyone globally is white. You need a mixture. You need that diversity, that representation. So I think with a massive company that probably has a significant marketing budget, forget Africa, forget Asia. Even in Europe, they should probably have a black model in their campaign, or maybe an Asian model. It's not just a pure regional thing. So I think that is a big, big mistake.
Just the fact that making a mistake, we all make mistakes. It's the other thing is how do you respond? And I just feel like their responses have been really bad. It's like, surely if oops, there's a mistake, something's happened, you have to kind of get in there. But I get the global need for continuity and everything else. But I think it's a fundamentally flawed thing to take people and just go, we are all global, because as much as we're all global, and I've tweeted and put things out there where it's so nice that as we deal with global partners on a day-to-day basis, I'm getting to see how similar we all are. Having said that, you have to kind of take different beliefs and different nuances into it. In the same way that in China, there's certain colors, and now I'm talking about as in not of people, but colors that represent bad omens and everything else. And there are brands that literally invert their logos to have a different look when they go into China.
Yeah, I think taking into account cultural sensitivities, international sensitivities is definitely a big factor. So yeah, there's different levels. I think you're right. If you want to say you're a global campaign, rather than maybe have to think about then making regional campaigns, you're right. Do you just need to create your global campaign to be sensitive to all markets? In some way, like you said, you just need black models in your campaigns. You probably then need Asian models. Just in terms of your point, Suraj, on the response. So the continuation of the fashion is global, and so our marketing campaigns, it then continues on and says that we've also worked with many models from various ethnic backgrounds in our campaigns. And then they listed some models of various ethnicities. And I saw one site referred to it as, this is basically the fashion equivalent of saying, but some of my best friends are black. So in terms of the response, and on a I guess a slightly more serious note, but the other interesting thing was in all their apologies and all their comments, nobody was ever named. It never said who was giving the apology. So the CEO, the chairman, didn't have their name associated with anything of it, just because they were trying to not have their name specifically visible with it at all. So I think that you're right. That comes down to how do you deal with it. And those individuals probably didn't want to be tied to it, but they're also the people who need to almost represent the brand at that point and be the ones to be the face and put some level of empathy or sympathy to it. So yeah, they didn't handle that very well.
Sounds like it escalated quickly though, because if you think they didn't tailor their marketing to the regions, they didn't have any black models. It's not like they've outright been racist. They've just failed with localizing their campaign. But then the response by saying we try and have a positive marketing campaign, that's when it goes crazy. Hang on, now that is essentially a racist kind of way.
That's what ticked everybody off, right? One person, or there might have been others, but one person got their voice heard a bit louder than the others and said, "Hey, you've got no black models." And then the response wasn't to that. The response was to their response of saying, "No, we need to convey a positive message." And if they said that in a different way, if they got I don't know how quickly you need to do these sort of things. Well, obviously you need to do them relatively quickly, but then do you take the time to bring someone in, or should you have just done it anyway? But it is, how do you respond the best way in a very way? Because if they didn't respond, then, or sorry, they have to respond. If they didn't respond in that way, then they probably would have shut down the issue, and could have been like, yeah, that's a really good point. But this is what we're going to do to work on it, and people probably would have gone, oh, cool, good job, H&M or something. So, I mean, I'll jump us into the
but
next
at least
one.
they learned from that. Hey Ben, they learned from that.
So they bought some black models into their future campaign. So if we jump forward to 2018, and I mean, in some ways it's not a laughing matter, but in other ways it's like an awkward laugh at just how does it fail like this. So that obviously I think a lot of people saw that this one got quite big, and obviously 2018, 3 years more into social media and everything popping up, and a lot more celebrities got behind it. But obviously they had a jungle themed range of clothing come out, and a number of white children in clothing, and then they happened to have one black child in a hoodie, and that happened to say coolest monkey. And obviously I think the monkey stereotype is relatively universal, or it's fairly worldwide, but I believe in South Africa it's quite poignant as a negative connotation towards black people, and then so obviously that just blew up to the point that the South African Human Rights Commission intervened. The economic freedom fighters are the ones that then got involved and started protesting and trashing the place. I don't know if you guys want to see a quick bit of footage. I'll see if I can share it now from the protest that I found. It's not too bad, to be fair. It's relatively
don't let
civil
my country look so bad
compared to what?
The Economic Freedom Front are well known for they're the same guys that basically burnt down a couple of click stores as well. This is peaceful protesting. I'm talking about.
That's what I thought. It was worth sort of worth sharing. And then there was obviously a bit of a breaking down the store. I think compared to what we expect these days, especially in America where everything's people looting and people trying to steal, they were obviously just trying to do some damage to put across their point in a physical way, I guess.
My daughter is a little model, so I've been on numerous shoots with her. There are so many people on a shoot. You can't be like if I was on that shoot and I'm not involved at all, and I see because now they kind of dress the kids. It's not hard set on who's going to wear what. It's kind of, let's put this on. Okay, the two of you stand next to each other. How did the mother of that child, the lighting person, the makeup person, how did no one go, I think there's a problem here?
I mean, there's two ways of looking at it, right? So one is the obvious way, which is ridiculous. It should never have got through. I 100% agree with that. How, like you've just said, how did nobody spot that? But then that question, you could flip it and say, in a way, because it's not intentional, is that a good thing that no one spotted it? Have we got to a stage where people are not thinking, oh, monkeys, let's make a racist association and say that's black people? Or, this is not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is a question to debate. But is it, when you get to that point when nobody makes those associations and nobody has those connotations and stereotypes, is that when we're truly not racist? So could it be the fact that no one spotted it mean it's not an issue? I mean, it's not, because of the current climate. You get football stadiums, you get matches, and the people in the crowd are chanting monkey chants. You can't do things like that. So it's a flat out no. But longer term, is the fact that no one picks up on these things a good thing?
Eventually, yes, but we have to be in a particular time when we have to get there, and we actually so far from there that in the same way that slavery is kind of been abolished for hundreds of years, or not, but for many, many years, yet you still can't really joke about it because it's so real for so many people. So I wish we lived in a world where it didn't matter. I really do, but we don't, and it's not only here. I think that one in particular went quite wild around the world, or was it only in South Africa?
No, so obviously a lot of celebrities picked up on it. LeBron James was quite vocal about it. They lost a couple of their celebrity sponsorships. Musical artists The Weeknd and G-Eazy both cut their partnerships with H&M over it. They lost quite a bit, and obviously they then had to put in massive plans with the South African Human Rights Commission making them put in diversity plans. They had to hire people into diversity roles and then report those plans back to the commission. So, I mean, the expense of making these sorts of mistakes and not putting the work in at the start to work with locals, to understand the market, to really develop, I guess, like we said, a market entry strategy specific. I imagine on some level they do, because no large business is going to just go, oh, let's open up in South Africa and not have a plan. But I think working with locals, understanding the market and the sensitivities around the market is obviously very, very important to consider.
And in this case, having some common sense.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's going to have been a massive expense that they could have avoided, right? But I just wanted to check look at another angle of it, and which I thought was pretty interesting. And I saw this comment on another website as well. And it said, you know, we've seen time and time again with other sorts of crisis, Ryanair, Uber, and everything's gone through stuff. But ultimately, the brand, the crisis or what they've done has not affected the organization's promise. So it's not directly related to their product or what their value and their service is, right? And then so as long as you keep that promise to the customer, and as long as you keep fulfilling it, that customers very quickly come back to the brand, and they have a very short-term memory in that sense. So I thought it would just be interesting to share that actually the H&M South African market from 2018, when that happened, to 2019, they opened up at least 4 new stores and grew their net sales by a number of units. I had a quick flick through their annual report there. So there is obviously a detrimental cost, but I think there is some interest there as well of understanding the customer behavior, because I think we all look at it and go, oh, that must have ruined them. It doesn't. It still costs them a lot of time and money, and they probably could have been in a lot better state. But it's just also interesting to understand how quickly we forget and, you know, trash a few stores, but then ultimately they ended up opening more and driving up sales.
And I think that in that there's both, again, the positive and the negative, which is the fact that we can recover. Is it the fact that we kind of all look at it and go, it was a mistake? We all make mistakes. Can we forgive them for that and we move on? And I think within it, there's the positive, and the other one is maybe there's just so many things that happen that it was just yet another one of them that had a little blip on the market, and one of those famous you only in the news cycle for 24 hours or 48 hours, and then there's another crisis somewhere else in the world to knock you off the perch.
I guess things like that could destroy a brand in some instances. But I think maybe H&M had such a strong market share, you know, in their positioning, the amount they charge for the types of clothes they sell, that kind of fashion, the demand was always there. So people got angry for a bit and then came to shopping. Do you want to pay more in the other store now? Let's just stick with H&M.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an easy one. Cool. So I've actually got a little bit of a theme running through today, and it's of things shutting down. So you know we've got to cover. I say they're negative, but let's look at why some of these. So that was our sort of failure sort of global expansion, I guess, for the week, and we're going to go through a few failures, and then I think we'll probably switch to some wins as well. So but today I'm going to stick on things sort of not going well as a theme, and it just happened by coincidence, but I thought I'll stick to it. So the next thing I wanted to jump on that was sort of heading in a bit of a spiral downwards, and if not very close to hitting the bottom, was in the US. A couple of the largest mall owners have just filed for bankruptcy, and you know, sort of 27 to 30% is the amount of rent they're getting. So they're only getting about a third of the rent they're due since about April. plus a lot of the large tenants. So your JC Penney's, your Ann Taylor's, these sort of large American retailers are also all going bankrupt, who then obviously owe a lot of sort of more rent. So these sort of places are going rent, and you're going to end up with these sort of massive buildings. London's just going into, well, we're now in our second lockdown, day 2 of hopefully what's only a month. But again, no more shopping for the next month until hopefully Christmas picks it back up. Do you guys think malls are dead, or do you think we're going to see them pop back up? And would you be interested in opening a store in a mall, especially the sort of traditional? Because you've got the high street in London, which is, you know, exposed to the street and so forth. But obviously in the States and even, you know, in Australia and so forth, they're there as well. But it's a big inside shopping mall, right? Do you think that model's dead? Do you think you would do something else if you were opening a brick and mortar store for your, you know, your fashion brand you're starting, Suraj? Or
as a matter of interest, fashion and me don't go well together. But South Africa is per capita the second highest malls per capita in the world.
Nice.
So we have shopping malls that spring up like out of nowhere, and they're still building them at a massive rate. But I have often questioned this and gone, even so before COVID, you know, I always feel that COVID have kind of killed off businesses that were weak or didn't have a strong business model anyway. If you were strong enough, you probably would be able to survive it. But I think those malls that are closing down there were probably, their tenants weren't running at a maximum kind of rate anyway. But I don't know. I'm not. I have a feeling that online shopping will impact it, but mall shopping centers it's a different experience, right? In the same way that going for coffee is less about going for coffee and more about the experience of chatting and being with your mates or whatever. In the same way that going to the mall is less about shopping and more about a social thing and trying to do that. I don't know your thoughts, Zane.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is still a good model. I think the issue is where there's oversaturation, where you've got 3-4 malls within a short kind of space of each other. But it is that experience. Like, online shopping's all well and good, but sometimes you want to physically see the item. And then if you think, I want to go to a store. I mean, I don't particularly like shopping. So if I ever think, I need to go to a store, I have to pick something up, I'll just message a few friends, are you free on Saturday? Let's go, because then I can grab that thing quickly. But then we get to hang out. You might walk around, do tiny bit of window shopping, but then you can go to the food court, you can go to a restaurant. A lot of malls have a cinema or bowling alley, or, you know, there's all these other things. So it's more about that wider experience. And then, you know, if I don't know exactly what I want to buy, at least I'm in this, you know, big building where there's lots of options. And in the UK, where it's always raining or cold, I'd rather be indoors than walking up and down Oxford Street and Regent Street for hours. You know?
Yeah, and in the opposite side of that is Dubai, where you have literally like ski slopes.
Yeah.
And so the one's got a ski slope and the other one's got an aquarium right in the middle of it. And you're just standing there and there's just these massive aquarium it just becomes shopping malls have become way beyond I'm going for shopping, and it's an experience. And I think I've worked with shopping centers quite often in my other business, where we create content for shopping malls, and their marketing teams, which is always my client, they're definitely torn between keeping their tenants happy and getting foot traffic into the mall, and they're doing it with promotions and selling off, trying to have as many things inside a shopping center. One of our biggest ones in Cape Town, in the festive season, their center court they convert into a theater, and they have kiddies, like full musicals right in the middle of the shopping center. So they're just trying to get foot traffic into the malls beyond just the shopping part of it. It has to be more than that.
I wonder if the pandemic might create an interesting opportunity to change what we see in malls. So these large brands are going bankrupt, who are then, you know, vacating, you know, a lot of retail space in all these malls, right? So JCPenney goes down, and then all of a sudden, all of their stores in all the different malls go down. I wonder though if this then creates an opportunities, because I was speaking with someone the other day, and that for all the businesses that end up unfortunately shutting down, and there it will create opportunity for people to start up businesses. People who are just on the verge of opening a new bakery, or people who are just about to do something of the like. All of a sudden, these malls, if they can survive through, are going to just be like, get someone into my building. I need interesting shops in here to get people back in. And they're probably going to produce lower rent, which will help people start their new business, or people will go, I've been thinking about starting a business. Now's my chance. I can rent this shop for really cheap for the next year. It'll reduce my startup costs. So it'll be interesting to see if we get more independent, diverse sets of shops rather than just a H&M and then your Zara and then your so forth and so forth in all of them.
Although, have you ever gone to a mall, like, let's say you're on holiday, or even in the, let's say you're in your own country, but you go to a random town that you've not been to before, you go into a mall and you just see all these shops and you're like, oh, I've never heard of any of these, and they're all independent and they all look a bit, well, maybe some of the signage is a bit outdated. Straight away you think, oh, this is rubbish. And then you go to a big mall and you see all the brands you know, and the lights, you go, oh, this is the mall to be at.
Yeah, true. It's a good point. I know malls have a lot of regulation where you have to continuously update your shop it's part of the agreement, is that every 3 years you have to repaint or whatever. But yeah, maybe then there's an adaptation of that. If that becomes part of it, you need to be bright and flat. Can't let it go down a bit. But I guess it's a really good point to Starbucks, because we just know what we're going to get.
But the other thing is where I think there might be some changes also is the business model, in that instead of just paying rent, are we going to then see these guys? I know there's already some things where your rent is actually directly linked to your turnover, but is it going to move more to that, so that retailers, or are you in a stronger position if I'm starting a new store to go into a mall that's battling and say, I'll take your store, but you're going to get a percentage of my revenue as my rent, not a hardcore lease fee, because I'm not sure how many feet are coming in here. It would be a different business model as well.
Yeah, you just then have to calculate how many months of negative or no money are you willing to accept. Because, some businesses take time to take off and to build up a community and a following. So it's like, how long does the mall accept 10% of nothing to assume for the owner to go, oh no, we're getting there.
Or could you break it up? So how even before COVID, in the past few years, I don't know how it is in other countries, but particularly in the UK, just from experience, there's so many pop-up places now. So even like in London, there's a bunch of areas where it's called Box Park. So you've got one in Shoreditch, you've got one in like Wembley, one in South London, and you just have these places. Some of them stay on for a year, some of them stay on for a few months, some of them come for a week, and it's just a pop-up. Typically it's food, but I've seen it with clothes, I've seen it with jewelry, seen it with lots of other goods. So could you have a situation where in a mall you say, okay, here's the fixed ones, so your Zara's and your Topmans and H&M's and whatnot, they go in for the long haul, and then you have areas where it's all pop-up ones. Give it a go, bring your business in for a month. If you're a food place, then it's the units that have the kitchen facilities. If it's a clothes one, here's the one that has these facilities, and then it becomes a more flexible, interchangeable model, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting market. Vinegar Yard near London Bridge has that sort of approach where it's a bit food courty and a bit like cool vintage clothes, pop-up sort of stalls people are set up, and there are people that want to go for that as verse of that as well. So yeah, it's going to change.
My last thing on this is I'm not sure in the rest of the world when it comes to who are predominantly the owners of the actual mall, because the way it works quite often is that you have a mall owner, and then you have the mall. There's a company that manages the running of the mall. But the people in South Africa, a lot of the biggest malls are owned by insurance companies, and I think they've looked at it and said it's a solid investment over a very long period. They look, and we're talking now not insurance companies as in not in short-term insurance. We're talking about life insurance companies that go out there and buy like chains of shopping centers or build chains of shopping centers, and they are investing billions of rands into building something because they know that it's quite a solid business over the next 30 to 40 years. So there must be, that makes me feel like there must be something in there, because these guys are particularly prudent with where they invest and what they do with the money that they're meant to be creating a profit on for their clients.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some potential, and as we've always said, these sort of crisis pandemics and financial collapses always just create opportunity where big things come out of it. So it'll be interesting to see. So my next shutdown might be positive depending on your point of view, but Walmart are shutting down their robot division of inventory trackers. So they have a large number of robots go up and down the aisles, and they automatically scan the shelves to check what items are in stock, make sure the prices are correct, and then obviously try and keep track that the right items are in the right place and when they need to be refilled and so forth. But they've actually just stopped the program. So I think they started in 2017. But the reason they stopped is because they found they were getting the same, if not better, results with humans. So partly obviously because of the pandemic, but so they've just cut it to replace it with a human workforce. So obviously there's a lot of panic over robots taking our jobs, but we've now got an example where we're outdoing them. Do you think this might be something we start finding in other places? Because there's always an assumption that automation is best, but then there's lots of extra things obviously people can do beyond robots. So if it's just straight warehousing, robots are probably still going to outdo humans. But in this sort of area, picking and packing the shelves can take a little bit of intuition and sort of understanding from a human perspective that the robot probably can't do. Do you think we're going to find this in other sectors as well?
But just a quick one, I don't know if you know this information, if your research in there was in depth enough there. But was it a replacement because they needed to keep their staff busy, or was it that it's not working well? Because within COVID, I know that they've been retailers have been repurposing staff members to do other stuff. I'm wondering if this was more of almost a social kind of a thing to kind of instead of do that, let's get some of our tellers or shopping people to come and do this rather.
Yeah, so I think there was a bit of a shift. So because so many more people are shopping online, and obviously we already saw like there's been a bit of a shift towards just doing your weekly shop online. Someone will come and drop it off, and what that requires is someone going in and picking your stuff. So I think the pandemic's definitely had an effect, because they've got so many workers now on the aisles, whereas before they didn't need workers on the aisles, right? You just needed to get them there to check out. Customers were coming through. But now that so many workers are going and collecting items to go to an online shop to be delivered to someone, while they're in the aisle, they're picking up the items. They're also able to be packing. They're monitoring the aisles essentially, because they're going in and out so much. It's almost like the aisles are half a warehouse as much as they are for the customers now. They're just storage for the staff. So the pandemic's definitely had an effect in changing how even the store is used, I guess. And because the workers are in and out the aisle so much, they're monitoring this by default, and the staff are replacing it, so the robots just aren't needed. So they cancelled the contract with the robots.
I think it's a fine line. So if automation, technology, robots can really, improve, make things more efficient, increase economies of scale, have a real tangible benefit, then it's obviously a good thing to implement it. Where it's kind of narrow margins, you're better off relying on people, because you want there to be higher rates of employment. You don't want everything to go. Obviously, when people worry about robots taking over, but hopefully, who knows what point we get to that level of automation. But that just frees up more opportunities for people to do other things, and they won't necessarily, be out of work and whatnot. But with certain things where it's kind of a fine line, I think you got to go with the humans. You got to kind of rely on people. People do have that added bit of extra that you wouldn't necessarily get from a robot. And on the kind of shopping experience, I don't know if you guys have seen the Amazon stores, but they've got some of those in the US and they look amazing, where the trolley, you don't even need anyone to help check you out. You don't even need, anything to go in. You just go into the store, you have your trolley, you log into your Amazon account through the trolley, or you tap your card or whatever it is. And on the aisles, when you pick up an item, you put it in the trolley scans it, it knows it's in there and adds it to your bill. And then if you think, actually, I don't want that, you take it out. The trolley just picks up on that as well and goes, oh, remove that from your bag, back on the shelf. And that way you just go in, pick up your items, go out, it's all automatically paid for. And that's amazing.
I believe that whether we like it or not, robots are going to take over many, many jobs, and they are going to do it infinitely better than humans in certain, especially in things that are repeatable, things that are very similar type things. It's just the you guys know, have you heard of Moore's law, which is just the fact that every 18 months what you can put on a microchip doubles. And it's been doing that since we've started off with what you can put on a microchip. Every 18 months, the technology improves. So with that improvement, which is a stark spike in the brain capacity, so to speak, of a robot, there's no way we're going to be able to we're not going to be able to compete. Eventually, they'll work out a robot that as it's driving down the aisle, it has the stuff with it, it's cleaning the floor as you're going, and you're doing that. Impossible that humans are going to do that.
Yeah,
it's just,
I think that's a far more complex robot than just saying, all right, this is empty, let's go get some. So I think in the change in the shopping mentality, in the way it's done, then that's slightly saved them a little bit. And maybe that's the other thing we need to consider with the automation as well, is it best just to automate the existing way of working, or should Walmart have been pushing more online shopping from the start and using their staff in that way and optimizing from that point of view? So so just curiously, I saw the Amazon thing, and obviously when they bought Whole Foods, they were doing a bunch of stuff around that, and they also have a version where you're just monitored constantly by camera. So as you walk in, you need to, like going into a tube station or something, there's gates. Use your phone with your Amazon account logged in to tap in, so it connects your Amazon account, and then it would just watch you pick up an item and go, cool, Ben has a can of Coke, and that goes into your trolley, into your cart to buy. So you could then just put that in your bag and pick up a candy bar, put that in your bag, and walk out, and then it charges you on the way out. Back when some looting was being done, there was a story where a bunch of people looted some of these stores, but it picked up their Amazon account on their phone and then charged them. I don't know if that was true or not. Don't quote me on it, but I just remember that being a good story.
We need it to be true.
It's £2,000.
Yeah. Went and looted and got charged on the way out because it picked up their Amazon account. So yeah. Anyway, interestingly, Walmart still have robots doing their janitorial work. So I guess that's to your point, Siraj, that where it's just one set task, you know what you're doing: mop the floor, get it done, get in, get out. A human's not going to do that better. A Roomba's just gonna run through in the evening, and it's going to be done. So yeah, it's a temporary measure in some ways, I think, but an interesting one. I did have another topic, but I think I'll just leave it there as we're running out of time. The PS5 is coming out next week. I think you can officially start buying it from, and then the week after that it becomes more available worldwide. But I just saw some stats on the gaming industry. One of the things that aren't shutting down anytime soon, and the pandemic's helped. So I don't know if you guys remember Pokemon Go coming out, I think 2016 officially, had crazy figures. Like in its peak after debut, it was making $10 million a day in revenue and so forth. So that was about 4 years ago. How much do you guys think it's made this year? Throw me a ballpark number. Pokemon Go's revenue for 2020. And I will say it has adapted to letting people stay at home more. So obviously a big part of it was going out and moving around the environment and using the AR. So to, as part of everybody adapting to it, it did help you to play the game while still being in your house. So I'll throw that out there, but give me a revenue figure.
But did
What
you
was
say
it in 2016?
They were making like 10 million a day. I think in the first 90 days it made $200 million or something. That's at its debut.
Yeah, I think it would have spiked. I think if Netflix and gaming just went through the roof, I would think we're all just sitting at home doing those kind of things. So I would say, with 2016 to now, anyway, there'll be an increase. I would go by 4 times that. I'll be conservative
Per
and
day.
say per day.
Yeah. Well, give me
I
an
would say it's
annual
gone
number.
down.
So
An annual number.
Yeah, I've got the annual revenue. Oh, sorry, it's only 2020 so far, but we're pretty far through.
I would need to pull out my calculator here, man.
I'm going to say 200 million.
Okay, so 10 million a day for 360 days is 3 billion, right? So I'm going to go with 5 billion. How's that?
Okay. So you're both way on the other side. So I think the numbers drop. So they did spike and then lower, but you are right in that it's increased. They've done, just in Pokemon Go, the AR game for your mobile, they've done $1 billion in revenue this year so far. So the overall mobile gaming market is expected to do 77 billion this year. And it's massively up. So some companies are 20% up, others are 50% up. Nintendo saw a crazy increase when they released Animal Crossing of like 400% revenue increase or something. Epic Games just received new funding. So Epic Games are the guys who made Fortnite and have since then gone on a bit of an acquisition spree and so forth. They just got some new funding, which puts their valuation at $17 billion. That one's a breakout. So I thought I'll have a positive story in the back just in case everything shutting down was a bit negative. But yeah, if you've got money, look to the gaming market. I think that might be the way to go. Yeah,
it's a big market. I know that a couple of years ago when I was still working for Naspers. Naspers is they own a biggest shareholder of Tencent in China, and the CEO was telling us how they've literally got buildings where the floor is a grid, and they've got people doing fight scenes with little dots all over them. And it's a grid so that the camera can take shots of you 360 degrees. And so you can do your thing, and then it just plugs into these games. The technology and the amount, if they're making that kind of money, $1 billion in a year, you can imagine a lot of that's getting reinvested into this, and it just keeps going.
Well, guys, that's used up our time. So I guess thank you for joining me. And obviously, thank you to all of our listeners and watchers for joining us for another episode of Coffee with Centuro. I've been Ben Blackburn.
And you've been watching Coffee with Centuro.
There we go.
Guys.
There we go. Thanks, everybody, so much. We'll
speak
to you next week for, I guess, some exciting election news. Tune in then. Cheers, everybody.
Yes.